The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Dismissed DPWH engineer Henry Alcantara has returned today roughly 110 million pesos in cash to the government. Acting Justice Secretary Frederick Vida said the payment is part of the restitution process in the ongoing flood control corruption probe. Treasury and Land Bank officials were on hand to verify the amount. Alcantara and two other former DPWH officials are also facing tax evasion complaints. The Bureau of Internal Revenue has filed charges for unpaid taxes totaling 1.6 billion pesos. The Philippine National Police will deploy 15,000 officers to secure mass anti-corruption protests at Luneta Park and the People Power Monument on November 30th. Acting PNP Chief Lieutenant General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. said the deployment aims to ensure safety, prevent violence, and monitor potential agitators while respecting the right to peaceful assembly. Body-worn cameras and human rights officers will be on site to maintain transparency and accountability. Business groups say it's time for government officials to undergo lifestyle checks, and they're urging even the president and the vice president to comply. Paulo Barcelon is on the line for the details. Hi, Paulo, go ahead.
In a joint statement, FINEX, the Justice Reform Initiative, the Makati Business Club, the Management Association of the Philippines, the Shareholders Association of the Philippines, and the Institute for Solidarity in Asia called on public officials to submit themselves to lifestyle audits. The groups say such checks are much easier now with digital footprints revealing spending patterns, travel histories, social media activity, and luxury asset ownership. FINEX President E.J. Kwahiansen says lifestyle checks demonstrate that public offices cannot be used for unexplained wealth and that lifestyle checks support transparent governance, which is in turn essential for economic growth. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry is backing the call. DCCI Vice President for Trade Brian Ang says it's now time for the private sector to hold public officials accountable.
Before, when BIR would conduct lifestyle checks on businessmen, today, it should be the opposite. It should be the private sector conducting lifestyle checks on their accountable public officials. Anyway, many of us shop at these malls and go to these exclusive country clubs. If ever you see your government official there, that should raise a red flag. Because government officials, to begin with, should not live ostentatious lifestyles.
Ang also says even the country's top elected leaders should not be exempt.
How about the president and the vice president? Should they also follow this?
Yes, of course. It is tantamount to all. This applies to all elected officials. And actually, my recommendation is if you find any of these erring officials living lavish lifestyles or spending extravagantly, isumbong mo sa Pangulo. There is that website put up by the president.
Bilyonaryo News Channel has reached out to several officials to ask if they're willing to undergo lifestyle checks, Mai, and we've got two confirmations. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tu Laurel replied with a simple yes, of course, and the same goes for DTI Secretary Cristina Roque. Business groups add that transparency is no longer enough. They want the Office of the Ombudsman to take a more aggressive role in going after corrupt officials, including seizing properties allegedly acquired through illegal wealth. Mai.
Thank you for that report, Paulo Barcelon. House Public Accounts Chair and Bicol Saro Representative Terry Ridon has criticized the Trade Department for saying 500 pesos is sufficient for a Filipino family's Noche Buena. Ridon said that even basic items like spaghetti and cheese would exceed that budget, especially for families. He emphasized that Filipinos aren't limiting holiday spending, but they expect the government to keep prices stable and affordable. President Marcos has inaugurated a key component of the Angat Water Transmission Improvement Project aiming to secure water supply for Metro Manila and nearby provinces. He said that the Tunnel 5 boosts the system's capacity to nearly 8 billion liters per day, marking a major step towards reliable water access for all Filipinos. Marcos added that the project will help communities prepare for droughts, maintain existing tunnels, and build a future-ready water network. President Marcos has reaffirmed the Philippines' strong ties with Ukraine during a call with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The leaders discussed cooperation on food security, agriculture, and digitalization. Marcos says that they also explored ways to deepen Ukraine's engagement with the ASEAN ahead of the Philippines' chairmanship next year. We're taking a short break. More stories are coming up next. You're watching Business Brief. On Business Brief, reduced infrastructure spending and declining personal consumption are weighing on the Philippine economy. This, according to the chairman of the UP Visayas Foundation. On BNC's B360, economist Alex Escucha says the country's weak third quarter report at 4% is almost as bad as the 1997 crisis and average of the pandemic years. While infrastructure spending has slowed due to controversies surrounding the DPWH, Escucha believes the slowdown on personal consumption is another major factor behind the lag.
However, the real source of the slowdown, Robert, is the slowdown in the growth of personal consumption. If you notice in the last 30 years, two things to point out there. On the demand side, consumption is 70% of the economy. So if the economy is growing by 6 to 6.5%, 4.9% of that is just personal consumption alone. So any slowdown there will really be almost 3/4 of the growth number. But hopefully that is not really, because the underlying sources of consumption still remains. The OFW remittances, the BPOs.
Yes.
Despite a low inflation rate, Escucha says food inflation is still a major concern among Filipinos. In October, an SWS survey showed 56% of Filipinos wants the administration to focus on inflation instead of corruption issues.
When food prices went up, it just stayed there. Even if food inflation is zero, it's still high at that level where it stopped. No? So that means it's an affordability issue for the poor people.
Concert goers are backing Senator Raffy Tulfo's call for an investigation into overpriced tickets. Tulfo asked the Trade Department to look into the extremely high prices of international concert tickets, including K-pop acts. Fans cited taxes, processing fees, and poor event management as major concerns. Tulfo highlighted Blackpink's 2025 World Tour in Bulacan, noting the VIP pit sold for 19,500 pesos locally, compared with 11,000 pesos in South Korea. The youth demands the Philippine government to prioritize education more. On Tuesday, the Senate backed the Department of Education's budget worth 1 trillion pesos, the largest in the country's history. However, on BNC's At the Forefront, Joaquin Buenaflor, chairperson of the University of the Philippines Diliman University Student Council, says this is not enough unless education is accessible to all.
Kailangan mas i-prioritize yung education. At for example, itong mga flood control projects na to, itong mga budget insertions na to, yung mga sinayang na pondo na mga kinurap,
Sana nabigay sa
dapat
education.
nabigay na lang sa
Okay.
sa mga kabataan. Or hanggat kinukupot yung budget sa education, mas lalong lalaban yung mga kabataan for higher and sufficient budgets for
Okay,
education.
so after
But the floor also expressed dissatisfaction with the proposed budget of state universities and colleges, amounting to 128 billion pesos in the 2026 National Expenditure Program. The UP system is projected to receive 25 billion from the allocation. Lawmakers in September sought a 12 billion peso increase to fund the Free Higher Education Act in the 2026 General Appropriations Bill.
Hindi yun kasi yung wish ng UP. Hindi yun yung budget proposal ng UP. I think aabot siya ng 40 billion, ganon, para tugunan talaga lahat ng kailangan ng UP. So I think until hindi pa rin nananatiling accessible yung education sa lahat ng kabataan sa Pilipinas, hindi pa rin sapat yung pondo na ibinibigay sa sector ng education.
Global Data's Payment Cards Analytics has reported that card payments are expected to reach 4.2 trillion pesos this year, up nearly 19% from 3.5 trillion in 2024. Growth is driven by a rising bank population, digital banks, and expanding payment infrastructure. Credit and charge cards account for nearly two-thirds of spending, fueled by rewards and cashback programs. Debit cards make up the rest, supported by no-fee basic accounts. Regulatory policies are boosting consumer trust and encouraging a shift from cash to cards. Analysts say payments could nearly double by 2029, keeping the Philippines among Asia's fastest-growing card markets. We're taking another short break. A look at how Philippine shares did today when we return. Stay with us. You're watching Business Brief. Back on Business Brief, Philippine shares rise into the 60-100 level in the final trading day of the week. The PSEI ended nearly 0.9% higher to 60.22. All sectoral indices were in the green, with mining and oil rising the most at 4%. Advancers outpaced decliners 115 to 68, with value turnover at 5.5 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks were in the green, with Converge rising the most at almost 5%. On currencies, the peso trades at 58.77 against the US dollar, down from the previous close of 58.76. Asian shares are mixed in holiday-thin trading as tech stocks slip. This comes after a recent rebound driven by hopes for an interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve loses steam. Hong Kong's Hang Seng, South Korea's Kospi, and Australia's ASX are in the red, while the rest remain in the green. The US dollar remains flat against the Japanese yen, the Hong Kong dollar, and the Singapore dollar. It depreciates against the Thai baht, while the Australian dollar also depreciates against the greenback. Gold rises 0.4%, and oil prices are up. In crypto, Bitcoin rises 0.1%, while Ethereum drops 0.3%. The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, is warning private employers to release the mandatory 13th month pay on or before December 24. Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma stressed that deferment is not allowed under the law. Non-payment can result in fines, penalties, or even cancellation of business permits. Laguesma added that no violations have been reported since he took office in 2022. DOLE regional offices will enforce strict compliance and monitoring. U.S. online sales on Thanksgiving are forecast to rise 6%, reaching $8.6 billion as shoppers chase deep discounts amid tariff-driven economic uncertainty. Data from Salesforce shows spending was already up 5.8% by mid-afternoon, with global sales hitting $13.1 billion. Retailers reported strong demand for discounted electronics and apparel. Black Friday is expected to be the year's biggest online shopping day, with global sales projected at $78 billion and U.S. sales at $18 billion. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again next week as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business. Only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel.